Okay. Good evening. This is the time for the DIAB meeting. I would like to call to order the Disability Issue Advisory Board meeting for January 9th, 2025. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and please keep in mind, members, to keep your microphone muted as we are meeting. So won't be any residual background noise. Um, Ms. Smith, can you do the roll call, please?
Sure can. Can you guys please just answer in the affirmative so that I can mark you down as present? Stephanie Blackwell,
Present.
Teresa Smith, present. Samantha Dawson Williams, Sylvia Amaya, Trinell Bowman.
Present.
Sorry, y'all. I was printing out the documents that Tia just sent me.
No problem. We're in the process of taking roll call. Sarah Bryan,
Here, present.
Rachel Doyle,
Here.
Irma Cottrell, Janie Payne,
Present.
is this Sharice Vickery? Erica Wingate Robinson,
Present.
Jamal Jongo, Tia Johnson. I know we don't really need to capture her for roll call, but I know that she's having some technical issues. All right. I saw that Samantha. Let me capture you, Samantha. Samantha Dawson Williams.
Present.
Thank you, Chair Blackwell. We have a quorum.
Ms. Smith,
Okay.
I'm also here. My name was not read.
Brittany. Ms.
I'm
Patrick.
sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm using an old document. I apologize. Brittany Patrick. All right. Chair Blackwell, we have a quorum. And then Samantha, can you take over for note taking?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Chair Blackwell, you're on mute.
Can Ms. Smith, can you go over 1.2 for me, please?
The welcome and opening remarks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
okay, so that's your agenda item. You can open the meeting up with any remarks that you have for us.
Okay. I hope that everyone had a restful and peaceful holiday. We will move forward on the meeting today, on our meeting today in the agenda. I'd like to move on to 1.3, adoption of the meeting agenda. The question is, the board should be able to adopt the January 9th meeting notes for the DIAB. The meeting notes were admitted to the agenda a little late today, so we didn't get a chance. The members in the committee didn't get a chance to review it. So for Ms. Dawson, can you? We already took the roll for. We can't vote on the minutes because they was submitted late. So we're going to move forward to 1.4 of the agenda for this evening.
Just as a point of order,
Mm-hmm.
we have to take a vote on agenda item 1.3.
1.3. Can we take a vote on Agenda 1.3.
I'm sorry for interjecting here
Go
before
ahead, Ms.
we,
Smith.
okay, before we request a motion, there needs to be a modification to the agenda tonight. Chair
Okay.
Blackwell, would you like me to
Yes.
state? Okay,
Statewide.
okay.
Mhm.
All right, guys. So the meeting minutes have not been posted to board docs. And as a result, item 1.4 needs to be, we need to strike item 1.4 from the agenda tonight and be ready to discuss December 17th meeting minutes at the January 21st meeting. So we would like a motion to strike item 1.4 from the agenda before we take a vote on item 1.3.
Make a motion to strike item 1.4 from the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded that item 1.4 will be strike from the agenda this evening, and the approval of the December 17th meeting minutes will be added to the agenda for January 21st, 2025.
Mhm. Moving forward with that, I like to add to that for the amended meeting minutes from November 6th meeting. That we had to amend to it was only one problem that we had that was brought up. That was by Brittany Patrick name was not added. So we amended that meeting notes to add your name to the minutes, Ms. Patrick.
So just a little bit more context there. At the January 21st, 2025 meeting, we will be, on that agenda, we will have the December 17th meeting minutes, the amended minutes from the November 6th meeting, as well as the minutes for today's meeting, January 9th, 2025. So can we now take a vote to approve the January 9th meeting agenda? Samantha, can you call the roll?
Chair Blackwell,
Yes.
if I could interject, this is Tia. I'm just confirming that everyone can hear me.
Yes.
You can? Okay. All right, great.
Are there
Okay,
any
one moment.
objections?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to open up the document. 1 second.
I'm sorry, Miss Williams. We can do it a different way. Are there any objections with approving the meeting agenda for January 9th, 2025? Hearing none, the meeting agenda is approved. All right, Chair Blackwell, I turn it back over to you.
Okay. We go into discussion of actions or items. We discuss the DIB bylaws. At our previous meeting, it was agreed upon that the members that will establish bylaws for this board. Bylaws are fundamental documents that are serve as a framework to the structure and governance and operation of the organization. So, and that the importance cannot be overstated as they provide clarity and consistency and direction of the board's activities. So, when we had our last meeting, discussed about the bylaws, but Ms. Johnson could not locate them, so we kind of started a new set of bylaws as a committee. But once we put together the subcommittee groups, we can bring that to the agenda for January 21st meeting to discuss how we would establish those subcommittees, that subcommittee to establish the bylaws for the DIAB. Yes, Ms. Smith.
Chair Blackwell, I think tonight we could find out if there are committee members who would like to work on drafting up the bylaws. I
Yes.
think we could do that today.
Mhm.
And while we're still waiting on a response on how those meetings can be held, at least we will know who will be working in that subgroup.
Yes. Do we have any volunteers who would like to be part of the subcommittee establishing the bylaws?
May I ask a point of clarification?
Yes.
It's come to my attention that policy number 1500,
Mhm.
which governs the Parent and Community Advisory Council, that policy explicitly requires the establishment of bylaws for that council under section 4-5. But policy number 1700, which outlines the obligations and purpose of this Disability Issues Advisory Board, does not include a similar requirement for bylaws. In fact, policy 1700 specifies that our primary purpose as a nominated body is to provide an annual report on 3 key issues and related matters. And so I'd like to inquire if establishing bylaws at this current time is necessary, given it is not outlined as a requirement in the given policy.
Ms. Smith, can you
Can I
answer?
just,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll defer to you, Ms. Johnson, before I chime in.
And just in response to Ms. Brittany Patrick, I believe, was that you that was speaking just now?
Yes,
Brittany
ma'am.
Patrick?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it was to my understanding that there were a set of bylaws, but unfortunately, my office, we were unable to locate them. And so it was suggested that we may have to just create a new set. I did reach out to one of the former board member, Shayla, but she wasn't able to, I guess in the midst of everything that was going on, I wasn't able to get a response from her, but I thought I was told that there were a set of bylaws, but we just weren't unable to locate them. And so it was suggested that we could come up with a set of bylaws. But I can certainly look into whether or not they're even necessary for this advisory board. So if I could have that information to y'all by the next meeting, I guess it would depend on leadership if they still would like to proceed in creating some or waiting, or how you all would wish to pursue it.
And I think that that's the point that I wanted to touch on. I know you asked, is it necessary? I think as with any group that's formed, having some form of document, whether it's actually a bylaw document, in place helps to govern our actions. I think you make a fair statement that the policy currently does not outline it. I don't know if there's any history as to whether or not it was ever discussed when that policy was drafted. So my position with this would be we as a group decide whether or not we need bylaws, and then whether or not this is the time to formulate those bylaws or some form of document that will illustrate how we will conduct business. I'll pause there.
Ms. Vickery?
So I too was doing a little bit of research around the bylaws after we got a copy of another board's or committee's bylaws, which I thought were actually kind of pretty easy to kind of follow. We could mimic those. But I actually was looking up more so the bylaws of citizen advisory committees, and under the PGCPS bylaw 9140, there is no indication that advisory committees should be developing their own bylaws. So I was wondering if we even needed to do the step myself. It basically just states that at least one citizen advisory committee should be around or exist to provide advice and assistance to the board. It should consist of 5 members. And then it just kind of speaks, it's really brief. It's like 3 bullets, and it kind of just speaks to who or how the members are chosen and selected. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't even speak how long advisory committees should last. I know that we were given the instruction of lasting of 2 years for this advisory committee. And I know that there was even discussion on our last couple of calls around making sure that this advisory committee lasted longer. But I'm not sure that we even have the ability with the policy that Ms. Patrick just said, and then policy 9140, that we can even create bylaws in this capacity.
Ms. Bowman?
My recommendation would be that we yield to the board office and the board attorney that supports our Board of Education members just to weigh in from just a legal standpoint about the policy itself, because typically if bylaws would be required, it would probably indicate it in the policy itself. So we may just need legal to just weigh in and to get the interpretation of how we move forward is what I would recommend.
Ms. Doyle?
Thanks. Hi. I have to speak it. I'm feeling kind of frustrated. We have, and I can see on the faces of some of my fellow parents, the frustration too. You know, we have really important mandates that we have been asked to explore, and this is the 3rd meeting and we still have not explored any of the mandates. We're still kind of talking about the board itself. And while I understand maybe a meeting or 2, I really was hoping we could delve into some of the issues that we've been tasked with informing the Board of Education about. So, you know, bylaws, yes or no, but we need to be talking about the issues that we're being tasked to discuss. Thanks.
Ms. Bain?
I think you mean me.
Yes,
you?
I'm sorry if I
Okay.
pronounced your name incorrectly.
That's okay.
name
It's
incorrectly.
burn like a fire. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so just chiming in here, it sounds like we're all going in this similar direction. I believe the bylaws discussion first came up in our first meeting when folks were seeking kind of clarity on the policy statement, right? Because we were talking about kind of different interests within disability. Are we talking about physical disabilities? Are we talking about special learning disabilities? Like, what we wanted some clarification on the focus and the scope of this board, because as the policy statement itself seems, gosh, I'm pulling it up here. It seems to, under A, I mean, you all have it and you've read it for a quick kind of refresher. It seems to focus more so on physical disabilities, which is A-okay, but it was just to get kind of clarification on this board itself. And so then it kind of went then into a discussion of bylaws and how we as a committee can shape what we're doing, et cetera. But it's developing now into, I'm fearful this will be 7 meetings trying to come up with bylaws, which is, you know, which is tricky and which is not what any of us want. So I would be in favor, especially since we, as a committee, we don't have, to my understanding and to my reading of this, we do not have any decision-making authority, right? To be bound by the parameters of bylaws, pardon me. We're an advisory board. And so if our scope is to come up with a report at the end of whatever time mandate, those are the recommendations. It's advisory. It's not bound, as I understand it, by specific rules on ultimate decisions and implementing those decisions. So at this juncture, for what it's worth, I've already gone on too much. I would be in favor of revisiting the policy statement itself and seeing if we can rework that to incorporate what we came to this table with our to discuss. There you go. Again, late. Thank you.
Okay. I like to speak. I heard. I'm in agreement with Ms. Bowman that if we want to make sure that we follow the policy correctly, that we should understand what the administrative procedure is for the policy that was mentioned, to be able to give us a little bit more structure. I understand everyone's concern and frustration that we are not moving as fast as some others would like for us to move. And like for myself, this is new to me, but I am aware of the concerns of the committee because I'm in the school. So I see some of your concerns. I understand your concerns about what's going on in the school, far as the students and the staff, because we have two subjects that we need to address, not just the students, but the adults as well. So, it was brought up to the committee about the bylaws. It was brought up that we need to address that by one of the committee members. It was brought up to our committee about administrative procedures. So we kind of got to pick and choose what we need to address immediately. Not have so much on the agenda that we cannot address everything at one time. Just all fairness to everyone who want things to move a little faster, as we just started meeting in November. November was our first meeting. Then we had a meeting in December. So officially this is our third meeting. So that's just where I stand at right now. Miss Vickery, you had your hand up.
I was hoping that so first it sounds like we're going to table this and get feedback, as Ms. Bowman said, from the board attorneys and whomever else may be over policy work. I would ask that in that feedback, and I'm assuming that Ms. Johnson is going to get that feedback from us. I would ask that in that feedback that we follow up on the additional members in section B of the DIAB policy, which states that there are 10 members nominated by the Board of Education, 1 student board member, and then we have 1 employee. I'm assuming, Ms. Blackwell, that you are either considered the employee, and if not, if you are considered representing a specific district, because I know you're also a PG resident, then we are missing our employee representative. So I'm asking to have those 2 things clarified. And then I'm hoping that later today in this meeting that we can kind of talk about what Ms. Byrne was just saying in regards to how we break up kind of some of the work that we need to do in regards to making different, I guess, sub meetings, so that we can start to get to work. And then lastly, we were supposed to, all of this conversation started honestly from us trying to understand the Open Meetings Act. And that's kind of how we got down this road. So we still have not gotten that answer from the board. So I think if we can just get, even if it's not a training, if it's just a bulleted document, a 1-pager on the Open Meetings Act, so that we can move forward, that would be most helpful.
Okay. Ms. Williams, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I want to piggyback off what Sharice just said. I do think that, so this is a new group. Like they said before, Shayla said it was, defunct. So we are having to put things together almost from scratch. There's like nothing there. I
Mhm.
think because of that, we need to give grace to people who are new and trying to get ourselves together. But also, I do believe the bylaws would be good just because it would give us direction from here on out. Because once we get started, we want to get rolling. I don't want to have any issues further down the line, like legally, etc. So like with what Ms. Bowman was saying, you know, let legal let us know if we need those bylaws or not. We have this one rules of order that they suggested. I'm not even sure what that is, you know. And so there's really been no training. Everyone's kind of learning on the fly. So, you know, of course, need to bear with those people as well and be patient with them. And if that's something we can use, the rules of order for now, is that something that people want to do until we can get the bylaws together so that we can start working? Is that something that we can consider? Because I am ready to work too, but I also want to make sure we're following the law and doing things right. And
And the
also just
rules,
not
yeah.
I don't want to keep going back. Like someone said, we originally started this because of the Open Meetings Act. I don't want to keep having questions and going backwards and once I go, I want to be going from there.
Okay. Ms. Smith, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I heard a couple of different things. If I may, to Samantha's point about, I think she was talking about Robert's Rules of Order. We should be using Robert's Rules of Order in addition to following the requirements of the Opens Meetings Act. I wanted to just make that point. I wanted to, I guess two things. Ms. Johnson, I know that we've posed the question about the subcommittees. Do we have a response in reference to that just yet? As to whether or not the formulation of subcommittees requires us to have an open meeting, or can those be closed meetings? If you're
Can
speaking,
everyone hear me?
okay, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So from my understanding, it appears that subcommittees are, you all are able to have those subcommittees. However, I'm still trying to find out the answer to, can the work be done behind the scenes? Like, for example, let's say on the bylaws, for instance, and of course for any other work that needs to be done. I do know that when I was looking through the Maryland Open Meetings Act, there was something in there about there being, when some matters are confidential, such as personnel, and there was a couple others they listed, that can be behind the scenes. But I'm not really sure about other matters. Outside of that, I'm sorry, I can't recall. I know personnel stood out to me, and I believe financial was another one as well. But I'll certainly look into that for you all, so that way, and hopefully I'll have a response in a few days.
Chair Blackwell,
Yes.
I don't know just yet if I'm ready to make a motion, but
Okay.
I think what I would, perhaps for discussion right now, I would like to recommend that we determine what we would like our subcommittees to be, and maybe it's just 2 to 3 of us, join the subcommittees and start meeting while we're working on getting an answer as to whether or not the meetings need to be closed or open. I believe, and Ms. Johnson, please correct me, if I'm just arbitrarily saying 2 to 3. If we don't have a quorum, we are allowed to have discussion in a smaller group. Is that correct?
In a smaller group, publicly, or are you referring to behind the scenes?
So I purposely tried to not say publicly or in a closed. I guess what I'm trying to just simply say, if there is not a quorum present, are we allowed to have discussion on items pertaining to this board?
Okay, I think I understand your question. What I will say is that as far as like a meeting of this dynamic, we certainly need to have quorum. But as far as maybe for other matters, if I'm understanding correctly, I can look into that to see what is the, I guess the law for that or policy for that. Again, I do know that there are certain matters that can be discussed confidentially, but there was only a few that was listed. I'm not really sure how lenient Maryland's Open Meetings Act is for other matters, but I will certainly look into that for you all.
Do you know how soon you could get a response to us?
I can send over an email to my director and see what he says.
Okay.
It may require us having to also, we may have to go, it may require us to also contact, maybe for instance, a parliamentarian. So it would depend on a response, how long it would take to get a response from him or her. But hopefully maybe by next week at the latest.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then, I don't know, Chair Blackwell, while we're waiting on that. I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you. Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
I was
Tia,
just
you
gonna-
would speak.
I was just going to say, while we're waiting on that response, are we able to at least pose the type of subcommittees or work groups we would like to have? Can we at least do that?
Yes, I think that's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Patrick, you had
I
your hand
think
up. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
No, I was going to say that I think it's fine to go ahead and at least establish them, but maybe kind of yield to as far as starting to work until I get a response, which hopefully won't take very long.
Okay. Okay.
If that's okay with the
committee. Let Ms. Patrick say what she's going to say. We're going to come back to, in case we have to take a vote on agreement as a committee. Ms. Patrick?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I'm going to step out on a limb here. Given what Ms. Johnson has shared and understanding that we must wait to commence work until she provides the answers to our questions, I'd like to move to establish an advisory, a subcommittee of advisory board members who will collaborate and provide written recommendations to the committee as a whole on potential improvements to board policy 1700 so that we can discuss and provide recommendations to the board about improvements to that policy.
Okay. Ms. Vickery?
I'm going to ask if Ms. Patrick would want to amend that and make a motion for maybe 2 to 3 subcommittees so that we can do one for, how can I word this so you can understand what I'm asking you for? I'll do one for maybe physical locations, a subcommittee surrounding physical locations, one surrounding federal local laws, and then maybe one surrounding policies and procedures of PGCPS. If you get where I'm going, would you be willing to amend your motion for that?
I would, but I'm thinking we may need to hear some more discussion too. I'd yield to the chair and vice chair here.
Okay,
So-
and then one more thing I had my hand up for before we go forward. I had a chance to read the Open Meetings Act. I don't think there's a time that we cannot have a public meeting as we're defined as an advisory board of a local government. So the only times we could have a closed meeting, we would first have to have at least an initial open meeting, and then we can close the rest of the meeting off. But the times that we could do a closed meeting would be around using public funds, securities, which is, we don't have access to securities. If we're getting legal advice and or we're discussing security, cybersecurity, or any judicial matters, just to let you guys know.
Thanks. So, Chair Blackwell, there is a motion on the floor. So we need to find out if we have a second for that motion, and then we need to open it up for discussion.
Okay. Ms. Patrick, you put a motion on the floor?
I did. My motion was to establish a subcommittee who will provide written recommendations to the larger advisory board on potential improvements to board policy 1700.
Okay. Who would like to second that motion? Ms. Brain?
May I second it with the amendment that discussion of multiple subcommittees rather than just one? Or would I need to make a separate second or separate motion?
I think you'd have to just wait so you can kind of let the motion kind of die if that's it, and then we have the discussion, and then it comes back around again.
Okay.
Ms. Payne? I'm sorry, I skipped over one person.
Well, I
Oh,
think
go ahead.
now, since we have a second, you need to ask, is there discussion for the
Is there
motion?
any
before
discussion
we-
of this, of the second motion? I mean, the second motion?
Yes, I'd like to weigh in on discussion, and I really like the specificity of looking at policy 1700. It appears to me that the subgroups should be driven by what are the 3 issues that we plan on addressing in our report. So 1700 is pretty, I mean, we could take that and make that pretty broad. And I just want to have an understanding, and maybe Ms. Patrick, you're thinking about that, would that sort of be a focus for us to determine what those 3 issues are? Or is that one, right? And then we need to define 2 others. So I'd like that clarification before I'm prepared to vote.
Okay. Ms. Bryan? Sarah? You had your hand up.
I did. Thank you. And this is kind of going back a wee bit. So, but anyway, we're knee deep into the Open Meetings Act. I just want to confirm that we are indeed bound by the Open Meetings Act. Again, we're purely advisory. We don't make any decisions. We don't have any delegated authority. So, if we're not bound by it, that would save us that would save us 3 meetings so far. So it would just be great if we are indeed, and you all have been at this longer than I, if it is asked and answered and we are indeed covered, I will go to bed tonight knowing that fact. But is it indeed, are we covered by the Open Meetings Act? Even though we are advisory, even though we do not have any authority. Okay.
Ms. Blackwell and Ms. Smith, if I
Yes.
could, for the record, what you're looking for, Ms. Byrne, is essentially paragraph 2, and it just states that a public body is essentially defined as any entity that is developed or appointed by a local government. So that's how we fall underneath it. There's more to the definition, but essentially how we fall underneath it is if you are an advisory committee that has been appointed by a state or local government. And then it gives a clear example. A citizen task force would be considered a public body.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Ms. Bowman?
I just had, I think, I don't know if this is a clarification or just 2 points, just for the record. I think one piece is that if we look at the advisory board in terms of who should be here, we are definitely missing some representatives. I think that already came up, our union representative, as well as someone from our ADA office is not here, which I think definitely, if you look at the 3 areas of topic, we would definitely need our ADA compliance officer to be able to weigh in. But when we look at the 3 areas of the committee, so I don't know if it's one committee to look at recommendations for the board policy in general, to give recommendations, because only the Board of Ed can update the policy. But then if you also look at the 3 areas, it's really around accessibility of buildings
Mhm,
and facilities,
mhm.
proposing new schools construction, and then employment and hiring issues. And so just virtual by accessibility of buildings and employment and hiring issues. There may be other people that need to be here, like someone from our operations team as well as human resources. So I just, for the good of the group, I just wanted to bring that up. And so I don't know if it's a committee to look at just those 3 areas of the current policy as written, and then to look at updating 1700 and making recommendations. So I just wanted to put that out for the good of the group.
Okay. Mhm.
And Chanel, if this is Tia, if I could just kind of interject. So as you mentioned, yes, those positions are vacant. Now, what you all could do in the interim is, and maybe this is something more with leadership, perhaps. You can have guests from different departments come in and hold a discussion with you all over the areas that you are researching. That could be one option until those spots are filled, if that's something you all want to look into.
Ms. Patrick?
Yes, I wanted to respond to, I believe it was Ms. Payne's inquiry earlier regarding the purpose of the subcommittee. My thinking is that should we establish a subcommittee that is focusing on board policy 1700, we could then follow that up with a discussion about those 3 areas that may guide us towards the creation of our report. So potentially that subcommittee may suggest that we expand upon those 3 areas. That does not mean that we are changing the policy. That would be a recommendation to the board, but it could also be a way of guiding our discussion so that we can establish the areas of our report that we will develop. I hope that provides clarification, Ms. Payne.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
I'm sorry, did I still have my hand up?
No, no, I called on you because I hear 2 or 3, I hear 3 different things that we need to address. The policy. Go ahead. You can ready to say something. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is because we still have this motion on the floor, we either need to take a vote on this motion, or I don't know if we need clarity as to whether or not the motion was being amended. So maybe let me ask that question. Ms. Patrick, based on the discussion, was you going to amend your motion?
I would like to make an amendment to the motion. Can I restate it, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
So I'd move to establish a pair or a subcommittee of advisory board members who will provide written recommendations to the advisory board as a whole on potential improvements to board policy 1700. And the amendment that I'm adding is these recommendations would be distributed to all members in advance of the next meeting to facilitate review and discussion.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second it.
Yeah, do we need to take, so it's been approved, it has been second?
So if there's no further discussion on the amendment piece, you can ask Ms. Williams to take the vote.
Ms. Williams, can you take a vote, please?
All those in agreement of this motion to approve it, say aye. Or if we have anyone who objects, say nay. Okay, motion approved.
I think, Ms. Chair Blackwell, you may have to state that the motion passes.
A motion has been approved. Ms. Smith, let me see.
It's-
Now with
So-
this, go ahead.
So Chair Blackwell,
Yes.
I think for me and then for everyone else here, because the agenda item was related to the bylaws,
Mm-hmm.
how are we wrapping that piece up? I don't think that I'm too clear on it. I know that there was a question as to whether or not we need to be governed by bylaws because the current policy does not state
Say so,
explicitly
right.
stated. So I would just like, for my own edification, on what we plan to do with this particular agenda item.
Okay. Ms. Vickery, you have your hand up. Okay.
I can wait. My question is off topic, so I can wait until this is buttoned up.
Okay. Ms. Patrick.
Can I make a motion for the chair and vice chair, or Ms. Johnson, to seek clarification from the personnel that Ms. Bowman mentioned prior to the next meeting?
Okay, Ms. Bowman suggested that, Ms. Bowman, can you reiterate what the suggestion that you gave, please?
Yes, I recommended that we discuss, that we follow up with the board office, the legal team, to get
Mhm.
clarification on the policy related to
Okay.
bylaws.
Okay,
Thank you. I can
So the
read.
Board of Education does have their own attorney that does
Yes.
weigh in on policy.
okay. Ms. Patrick?
I'd be happy to restate the motion given that context.
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion for the chair, vice chair, as well as Ms. Johnson to reach out to the Board of Education legal team in order to seek clarification on the necessity of bylaws for this advisory board prior to the next meeting.
Okay,
I second.
okay. Ms. Williams, can you take a vote, please?
Well, before we take the vote, is there any discussion on the motion? All right.
All those in objection of this motion, say nay. Okay, motion approved.
Ms. Blackwell,
What do I say?
I think you have to say that
Say.
part.
Right, I'm like, do
Okay.
I say?
The motion has been approved.
I have a quick question because I feel like we're moving ahead. I wanted the last motion that we just approved. Can I get clarification on? You say you wanted to amend it. So what exactly? Where do we go? Like Teresa asked, and then we moved forward to Brittany on a second motion. Where are we going from there as far as like or forming the subcommittees? Like how can we move forward in that capacity, I guess? What did we establish with that motion? I guess I'm confused about.
Ms. Smith, would you like to answer that question?
Honestly, I don't, but
Yeah, I think
I
she
really
had the question with me.
I believe that it's really gonna be
It's
we
going to be
need the question answered about whether or not we can have, well, maybe it's not dependent on that. I believe in this meeting, we can formulate those subgroups. We can have discussion around those subgroups because the motion has passed.
Mhm.
Now, when those meetings are held and how they are held, that is dependent upon the information that we get from Ms. Johnson. I think that
right.
would be my response.
Okay.
So it's contingent on what we're waiting on, something from Ms. Johnson. What are we waiting on from her again? I'm sorry.
as far as meeting, when can those meetings, well, whether or not the meetings need to be closed or open, and if they have to be open, then we need to get on the schedule to be able to hold those meetings.
Okay, and Tia, I think you said, Ms. Johnson, you said that they have to be open, right? Did I miss?
That was me. I read.
Oh,
Sorry, Ms.
Oh,
Johnson.
yeah,
That was
sorry. It
that
was
was me.
Sharice, sorry. It was
Yeah, I
Sharice who
had the
said they had
open
to be
meeting.
open and then we could close them after, like they would
Yes,
start
but
being
Ms.
open. Is
but
that
Ms.
something we're
Johnson is
having to
yeah, but Ms. Johnson is
verify?
going to go back and verify that.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, from a contract standpoint, because I read contracts daily,
And
we
that's
we
correct,
don't really have a workaround.
and that's correct, Johnson, Ms. Johnson? You're verifying that information?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Patrick, you had your hand up. Can we come back to you, Ms. Vickery?
I just had a point of clarification. Are we able to discuss who might be potentially interested in being a part of the board policy revision subcommittee, so that should we hear from Ms. Johnson prior to the next meeting, we can take action?
Is this part of the second motion, Ms. Patrick?
Yes, so the second
Okay.
the second motion, Ms. Williams, was to establish a subcommittee on the potential improvements to board policy 1700. And the amendment that was made to that motion was for recommendations to be distributed to all members in advance of the next meeting by that subcommittee. However, I recognize that that won't be able to be done, right, until the work behind the scenes, until we hear from Ms. Johnson. But in order to do that, can we identify those members of the advisory board who might be interested in being a part of that subcommittee?
Miss
Good
Chair
evening.
Blackwell,
Yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I do see Mr. Fitzpatrick here, and we
Okay.
might be able to get a
Good
response
answer.
to our question. So could we recognize him?
Yes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about this. I was having trouble with Zoom having to authenticate. So the question that I did hear was whether or not you can get who's interested in the subcommittee. My suggestion is that if you are interested, if any individual member is interested in this subcommittee, that you send an individual email to the chair and vice chair. What you don't want to do is engage in a discussion with more than a quorum of this committee on the email chain, because then that would not be an open meeting. And
Okay.
you can discuss things individually as long as you do not have more than a quorum. Now, be careful, because the Open Meetings Act, and this is not legal advice, this is just my interpretation for the record, and the Open Meetings Act does not want you to do anything to circumvent the act, right? So don't say, I'm going to have 5 people show up and 1 person leave to circumvent it. But it is not a meeting of this committee if you do not have a quorum.
I
Mr.
think
Fitzpatrick, may I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
All right. So if we're going to, the motion has passed for us to establish this subcommittee to address board policy 1700. If that subcommittee needs to meet, is it a requirement for them to have a quorum to meet? And then if so, does that meeting have to be an open meeting?
How many people are on the subcommittee?
We haven't determined that just yet.
Okay, that makes a difference. What I'd like to do is let's hop on a call tomorrow to see how many people are interested and what's the best path forward.
Okay. Then another question, aside from the motion about this subcommittee specifically, board policy, a comment was made earlier that board policy 1700 does not explicitly state that we need to establish bylaws. Is that a question that you can address, or do we need to follow up with other individuals to have that? Because right now there was another motion for us to follow up on this, the chairs to follow up on it, but I don't know if this is something that could be answered by you.
I'd have an answer for you in the morning, only because I want to check with the board's attorneys, and I don't want to say anything, especially recorded on live, that is incorrect and mislead the public in any way. So I have an answer for you tomorrow after I seek additional guidance. I don't think that you have to, but I just want to make sure so that we don't mislead the public.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, on the clarifying question to Ms. Smith's first question, are we able to establish, instead of singularly emailing Ms. Smith or Ms. Blackwell, are we able to identify today, should we come up with more subcommittees or even this one subcommittee that we've made a motion and agreed upon, are we able to establish those parties who want to be a part of it today on this call? Or does it have to be the individual singular emails?
You can do it during the open meeting right now. Was that part of the agenda?
I'm not sure. So I will
Recovering
yield
though,
to the
does that
chair
fall
and
under
vice chair.
bylaws?
So
Does that fall under-
so the agenda item, Fitzpatrick, was for us to have a discussion about the bylaws, but then board policy 1700 came into play because it doesn't explicitly state that we need to establish bylaws. So then the thought behind this is maybe that we need to have a focus on board policy 1700 rather than the bylaws themselves. So the agenda item was
Understood. Yes,
explicitly.
you should be able to identify.
Okay.
Okay.
Chair Blackwell, that's it for me from Fitzpatrick.
Okay. I want to go back to the secretary. Can you please recognize Mr. Fitzpatrick here attending the meeting today, please?
And how, me or Tia? And how do I do that? I'm sorry. Do
I think she's just asking that you add it as an attendee on the agenda in that right column.
Okay, just add him into the meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a board office staff.
Absolutely, yes. I can do that.
Okay, Ms. Vickery, you have your hand up?
Yes, point of clarification for future meetings, Ms. Johnson, if you see someone add to the meeting or as a panelist where they can speak, you would just tell the chair and vice chair that you'd like to formally recognize that, or you would ask them to formally recognize that the person who attended the meeting and then add it to the meeting minutes like they advised. And then Ms. Blackwell, you would just say, I formally recognize that Mr. Fitzpatrick has joined our meeting.
I'm sorry, Sharice, were you saying that to me?
Both of you guys, yes.
I missed it again. What did you say I needed to be saying? I'm sorry.
So when you have a person who attends the meeting, that they're able, like a panelist, how we join and we're able to speak at the meeting, if Ms. Blackwell or Ms. Smith, whomever was chairing the discussion at that time, doesn't notice that they've joined the meeting, you would just, let them know that they're there and ask them to recognize the person. And then the chair or vice chair would recognize them formally, verbally.
Can I formally, what would I say?
You would just let them know.
Formally recognize that.
You would just let them know that they were here. And then the chair and vice chair would say, we formally recognize that X, Y, and Z has joined our meeting. And then for you on your meeting minutes, you would add them in there. But I raised my hand, just adding that, I know, because a lot of people, Robert Rules of Order can be very clunky and cumbersome. So just helping people out. But I did raise my hand because I wanted to actually make a motion to establish 2 additional subcommittees subcommittees. One looking specifically at, and sorry if you see me looking away, I just have a second screen. So I'm trying to track my thoughts here. One looking specifically at point 2 in board policy 1700, which is new school construction. And then a second let me rephrase that. One subcommittee to specifically look at the proposed new school construction and the access for individuals with disabilities in the current public school facilities. And then the second subcommittee to review employment and hiring practices.
I
Okay,
have a
that
quick
would be,
question. I'm sorry.
We gotta
Okay.
first see if there's a second, because it's a motion on the floor.
yes. There's a motion on the floor for, it's a total of 3 subcommittees. One for,
The motion, Ms. Blackwell, I'm sorry, we gotta get this right.
okay,
Yeah, the motion is only 2 committees. So Ms. Vickery, do you mind just restating your motion so that we have
Yes,
it?
ma'am.
Mhm.
My motion is to make 2 subcommittees. One, looking at the new school construction and accessibility for individuals with disabilities at current school facilities and other PGCPS system facilities. That's literally how it's written. And then the second subcommittee would be reviewing employment and hiring practices of PGCPS.
Second.
So Ms. Blackwell, this is where you let us know it's been moved and properly
it's
seconded.
been moved and approved. I just need a vote.
And properly seconded.
And properly seconded. I need Miss.
No vote just yet.
Okay.
Is there
Any
is there any-
discussion?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yes. So I wanted to, before we start requesting what type of committees, have we established, like, how are we establishing which type of subcommittees we want to have to begin with? I thought we were going to have like bullet points that we wanted to have certain talking points that we were going to agree upon, or can we have as many subcommittees as we want? How's all of that working?
I can add clarification and then I'll yield for more discussion. I'm specifically going off of Board Policy 1700, which established this advisory board. So in Policy 1700, there are only 3 bullets that they ask us to look at, 3 points that they ask us to look at. And so what I did was I took those 3 points. 2 of those points are around facilities. And so I merged those 2 into one subcommittee. And then the third point that they want us to look at is employment and hiring issues. And so that's the second subcommittee that I proposed.
Okay.
So that's where I got the 2 from. I know that we spoke about times before about other things that we wanted to be inclusive of. And I think we can get there in those subcommittees. But right now, this is our mandate is only these 3 bullets. And I think that's what Ms. Patrick wanted to explore is, do we have other mandates that we need to add? And so I believe that that will be discussed and identified underneath that subcommittee that's already been moved and voted on and approved.
Okay. Ms. Bowman, you had your hand up.
And I was just going to add, she clarified that beautifully, that based on the second motion has been that's on the floor, we would then have 3 subcommittees. And what Mr. Fitzpatrick advised us to do, if the second motion passes, if you're interested in those 3 committees, one of the 3 committees, you would send that information to the chair and vice chair. And Ms. Johnson is what I heard.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Patrick, you had your hand up, but you took it down. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, I was just going to confirm Ms. Vickery's statement that should the Board Policy 1700 subcommittee suggest additional areas in the future that we should explore, then additional subcommittees may emerge. But I do agree with moving forward as it stands.
Okay. Ms. Williams, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, so to clarify, we're saying this board was formed and we already have the 3 actions we're going to be advising on, if I understand correctly?
You mean the subcommittees?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Smith?
So if I may, and anybody could correct me, Ms. Williams, what I understand right now, we only have board policy 1700 in place. We don't have a bylaw document or any other document that could kind of, I don't want to say dictate, but govern what it is that we can or cannot do. So in absence of any additional information, we have to rely on board policy 1700. And so the two motions that has been presented to the board today is just simply from what we appear to understand our charge is from board policy 1700. Does that help?
I also wanted
Ms.
to ask on
Williams.
board 1700, I'm looking at this. Do we have 15 members? Or no?
Yeah,
So,
we
and this, if I may, I'm sorry,
ahead,
if I
Ms.
could
Johnson.
kind of answer that question, the 15 members. So at the start of this advisory board, I believe there were initially 15 or 16. One member withdrew. And then there are a couple of vacancies, but I believe initially the number was, it may have been 15, I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't 16, I think it may have been 15. Or 14, because right now there's currently 13 voting members. So maybe there was 14, and then one member withdrew.
Okay,
Ms.
just
Williams.
wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I do believe we have a question out that Ms. Johnson is going to also be following up with that Ms. Bowman brought up earlier to find out the other appointments that are identified in board 1700, Ms. Williams, that was kind of earlier discussion. So I do think we do have a response that we're supposed to receive back at our next meeting around the member who is appointed as the ADA compliance officer and a representative from the Office of Special Education. And I believe we also need for well, I'm not sure about this one.
It's the labor relations and then the ADA compliance officer.
Yeah, because I realized as I was speaking, I was like, oh wait, I do believe that Ms. Payne, I believe Ms. Payne is the CSAC member.
CCAC. Yes.
CCAC member. So
Okay. Ms. Payne, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just, I don't know at what point I raised thinking about this in our next agenda, but I think it would be helpful for us to consider how do we solicit other members to join the DIAB, especially since we've had someone who has left and there are vacancies and there are multiple committees and a lot of work that needs to be done. So I think having a discussion about what that process might be helpful.
Ms. Vickery and then Ms. Smith.
could we continue on with the motion that's on the table and then come back to discussing membership?
Yes.
So I believe that the motion that I made was I made the motion. Again, that was for two subcommittees. One regarding facilities and new construction of schools, and the other around employment and hiring practices. It was seconded. And so I know we had discussion, but it seems like we're off topic. So I'm not sure if Chair Blackwell, if you want to ask for a vote at this time.
Yes. I'd like to ask for a vote at this time. Ms. Williams, can you take the vote, please?
It's Dawson Williams. Sorry. It's hyphenated. Is there any objections to this motion? Okay.
Motion vote is made and approved. Ms. Smith.
The motion passed.
Motion has passed. Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I have raised my hand to address what Ms. Vickery has stated because we had the motion on the floor. But as a follow-up item to Ms. Payne's question, I do have an outstanding email to our board office because I did see that we had vacancies. Primarily, well, I guess I'm interested in all three, but what's unclear to me is what does that process look like at the district representative level? Because we started with one, I know we had the application period. I just wasn't sure if we were reopening the application specifically for that district, or would it just be open period, and depending on whoever is selected, maybe there's some double up with another district just to get the vacancy filled. But there is a question already out there to the board member's office about the vacancies.
Okay. Let's move forward. Are there any other discussions? Anyone want to bring up any other questions? Have we addressed all the things we want to discuss? Or we want to establish the subcommittees this evening?
So, yeah, so Chair Blackwell, I think that is the next thing. Before we move to our next agenda item, we
Okay.
probably need to, because we stated that if people want to state what committees they want to be on, they could do so in this meeting.
Yes. Ms. Vickery?
I would ask that the chair and vice chair get a second meeting for February on the calendar at this time, because we do have some open questions around how the subcommittees will function. And I'm not sure that we will have that answer before we can get to work. So instead of having our standard board meeting, which will be February 18th, I ask that we have an additional one prior to the February 18th meeting. And it could be just a 30-minute or an hour to get the answers that we need so that we could start to do the subcommittee work.
Okay. We
Chair-
already on it. Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Chair Blackwell, I think this may be an item that requires a vote.
Okay.
I move
Yes,
that.
and I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Johnson.
Chair Blackwell, if I may, I believe that, and yes, Vice Chair, you are correct, but I believe that this could simply be a voice vote without, if there aren't any objections to the motion, then it could be adopted in, I believe, if I'm correct in that.
Can I ask a question?
If no one objects to it.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Johnson? I realize that we also have a DIAB meeting on January 21st. Do you expect that we would have the answers by then? Or should we, just in consultation is this question, like, should we actually, should I pull back my motion? Like, do you think we will have the answers? Because if we have the answers in 2 weeks on the 21st, then on the 21st, the subcommittees kind of have their marching orders.
If you want to play it by ear, I don't want to make any promises, but we're going to try to get started on the research for it.
Okay. I'll withdraw my motion at this time,
Yes,
Chair
you
and
should
Vice
have your
Chair.
answers.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. I'll withdraw my motion at this time, seeing that we may have ample time to establish this information.
Okay. Vice Chair Smith?
So right now, if there are any individuals that would like to announce which subcommittees that they would like to be on, we can capture that information here. So Chair Blackwell, there's a question.
Yes. Yes, Ms. Bowman, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna recommend the committee for me. Should I wait?
So what I was going to ask is if Ms. Dawson Williams state the 3 committees so that everybody is aware, and then you guys could state which ones you would like to be on.
Yes. Miss Payne, you had your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to state the committee, so I'll wait until Ms. Dawson Williams states the committees first.
Okay. Miss Dole? You had your
Same
hand up?
thing. Same
Okay.
thing.
Chair,
Okay.
Chair
I'm
Black,
sorry, Sharice.
Chair
I
Blackwell,
think it was 2 subcommittees, right?
and it's a total of 3, but Chair
Three.
Blackwell and
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith, would it be best if we did it as a roll call? So one committee and then have Ms. Dawson Williams do a roll call of each member? That might be a
That
little
would
bit
be,
easier.
yes. Miss, go ahead, Miss Bynum. You had your hand up?
Ms. Byrne.
This is for just my own clarification. So the first committee, the one Miss Patrick talked about, that's to kind of consider, explore, firm up the scope, as I understand it, of DIAB or DIAB, correct? Okay, thank you.
Chair
can I get-
Blackwell,
Yes, Ms. Dunn.
I guess interject?
Yes.
So you don't necessarily have to take a vote. You can just simply just go down the list and see who's interested in this committee, then add their name to it, and just so on and so forth. It doesn't
Yes.
require a vote.
Right. That's correct.
And can I
That's
get the
what we
name?
intend to do, but we just wanted Ms. Dawson
Right.
Williams to tell us,
Honest.
remind us what those 3 are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm asking
Okay,
Sharice what the name, did we establish
Okay.
the names of the committees, and can I get those names again?
I don't know
Uh,
if
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
we
So the-
established names.
The,
Oh,
the
I'm sorry,
first-
Vice Chair.
The first subcommittee is for policy 1700.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just broad names. If the subcommittees
Mhm.
change the names, that's fine. Then the next one is new school construction. And then the next one is employment hiring practices.
Okay. And the format we're using for each subcommittee, I'm just gonna ask who wants to be on all 3, how are we gonna do that? Are we just going with the first one saying policy 1700, who all wants to be on that committee, and then I write down those names?
I think that's the easiest way.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, who wants to be on policy 1700 subcommittee?
Brittany Patrick, interested.
Teresa Smith.
Smith. Okay,
Sarah Byrne.
okay. I would like
Sharice
to be on it
Vickery.
too. Can I go at do I go at the end?
However you like.
And how many people can be on the subcommittee? Is there a specific number?
No.
No specific number.
No.
Not at this point. The
Okay.
number is dependent upon other actions, but for right now, whoever wants to be on.
Okay. And Ms. Vickery, you're saying you want to, okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Wingate Robinson.
I was wondering, can we only sign up for one?
Oh, good question.
Whatever your preference is, whatever capacity that you have, there's no limitations.
Thank you.
Would you like to be on the policy 1700, Ms. Wingate Robinson?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the second one, that's all that we have for policy 1700. The second one is new school construction. Who is interested? I see Ms. Vickery.
I'm Trinell Bowman, and I just want to add that's also the accessibility of buildings and facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me write that down.
Teresa Smith.
Smith,
Stephanie
okay.
Blackwell.
Well, gotcha. Who else? Anyone else?
Stephanie Blackwell.
I have you, Ms. Blackwell.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes the new school construction with the accessibility of buildings subcommittee. And the third is Employment Hiring Practices Subcommittee. Who's interested? Right, I have Ms. Blackwell, Ms. Payne, Ms. Patrick, Ms. Doyle, Ms. Wingate Robinson, and I would like to be on that committee as well. Is there anyone else? Anyone I missed? Okay, thank you. That concludes the 3 subcommittees.
Okay, we have that established. Subcommittees. Go ahead, Ms. Vickery.
I would like to make a motion that once we receive our ADA compliance officer representation and our Office of Special Special Education representation. Ms. Bowman, is that you or no? Oh, that is you. Never
That
mind.
is me.
Okay,
The
okay,
ADA
okay.
compliance officer.
Okay, so let me correct this. I'd like to make a motion that when we receive our ADA compliance officer, that they are assigned to the facilities and new construction subcommittee.
Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
I apologize for interjecting on the motion before the second, but the reason why there's no ADA compliance officer recommendation is because that position does not exist within the system, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a holdover from when the policy was originally met, but I'll have follow-up for you on tomorrow. I just didn't want you to go through the motion expecting this person to be appointed, and that is not an existing position at the moment.
I'll withdraw my motion. And Mr. Fitzpatrick, in your clarification that you received, can you ask, is there someone that functions in that capacity? Because that does
Absolutely
fall underneath the federal ADA rules and regulations. So there is someone that functions in that capacity. They just may not have that title. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, you had your hand raised, but you took it down. Was that you was going to answer that question?
I was gonna ask the same question.
Okay. Okay.
And I have a point of clarification, Ms. Bowman. Are you on the employee hiring committee?
Now I'm on the accessibility of buildings and new schools construction.
Okay. And another point of clarification question, are we missing our employee representative for bargaining units? And that might be a Ms. Johnson or Mr. Fitzpatrick question. I see Ms. Smith. Okay. So with that information, I'd like to make a motion once we receive our representation for the bargaining units, that person is assigned to the subcommittee for the hiring practices.
Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
So I think my question might be for Fitzpatrick. I'm curious when we're not involved in the application process or the appointments. I'm just wondering, is there any information that this board needs to know as it relates to the vacancy for labor relations? Is it that we're just waiting for someone to be appointed? Do they have to apply? What does that look like?
So there was already
What did it look like?
There was already a person appointed. I'll make sure my staff reaches out to that person to make sure that they're on the next meeting.
Great. All right.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion that was seconded? So I will move to do I need to have a vote on this, Ms. Smith? Yes. I'd like to have a vote. Can you do that, Ms. Dawson Williams, please?
All those who object to that motion, say nay. Okay. Thank you.
It has been moved and approved.
Without objection.
Without objection. Thanks, Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, follow-ups. So, am I allowed to give for a summary of what we just discussed?
I think we need to move to the next agenda item.
The next agenda items is the follow-up and next steps.
So now we can identify our follow-up items and then whether or not there's any next steps.
Okay. My follow-up items, we did establish the subcommittees this evening. As well as discussions on those subcommittees and who's on those subcommittees. Ms. Smith, can you help me out here? What things did I miss?
So one of the follow-up items is related to you and I getting with the board member's office to get our questions answered regarding meetings for the subcommittees. That's one follow-up item.
Okay, so there's only one follow-up item?
No, I'm going through my list.
Okay, just making sure. I'm making notes. Just 1 second, everyone.
Actually, I think that is the only item that I have for follow-up. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Dawson Williams. Oh, I'm sorry, there is another item. I just saw it here. It's related to the bylaws. So we also will be following up with the board member's office so that there can be some check-in with our legal department as to whether or not bylaws should be formed for this part. Should be formed under board policy 1700.
Okay.
Did I miss anything, Ms. Dawson Williams?
I think that was it. Yeah. I think, Ms. Johnson, I thought you were following up on something.
That's the board member's office. I just lumped it. I didn't call anybody.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, Ms. Payne, you have your hand up?
Yes, I think at least I thought a follow-up item was Vice Chair Smith, you're hearing about the filling of vacancies on this committee. You indicated you sent an email, so I would add that as well.
Okay. So that would be 3 items. Ms. Doyle, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, just as we're, starting to do the work, and I know that I may have gaps in my knowledge and it might be nice for us to all have the same foundation of knowledge. And I'm wondering if it would make sense for us to compile some documents that could be emailed, added to the agenda, just for all of us to be on the same page. For example, the special education strategic plan that was last published. I can't remember the date, but like that just might be good for all of us to read and all of us to understand. And if so, I would be happy to participate in that compilation.
Just 1 second. Vice Chair sent me some information. Give me 1 second to answer your question, Ms. Doyle. Give me 1 second.
Were you talking about the dashboard? Is that what you're looking for, Ms. Blackwell?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could take that item.
Could,
I
could
could
you please?
also, okay, I could also take on what Ms. Doyle just mentioned. I think it's an
Yes.
excellent idea. And maybe Ms. Johnson, as these resources are being compiled, could you perhaps help us on where best to house this information? Sometimes things can get lost in email. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it's possible to have these documents on a Google Drive and the members of the board could just go in there and take a look at those documents. But I totally agree. We all should be working from the same baseline of information.
Mm-hmm.
Then as it relates to the dashboard, oh my God, the name is failing me right now. Oh my God, it was just in my head, but I believe it was on December 18th, an email was sent out to all of you all to let you, it's the critical indicator, success indicators. I think that's what it is. Okay, that dashboard was recently updated with information related to the special education program. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention just in case it got lost in the compile of emails. But your reference point is December 18th. I know we had discussion in our last two meetings about data. How can we access data? Who are our points of contact? So that's one resource. I'm sure that there are tons of others, especially once we start getting into these doing the work in these sub work groups, we may realize that we need data from other areas of the school system. But
Yes.
I just wanted to point that out, that that dashboard has been updated. So that's one resource that the board can consider utilizing that's publicly available.
Okay. Can I go? I found that text. It's under the Family Institute. They released the
Oh,
spring schedule.
That's another item.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So, go ahead.
there was an email, I received an email earlier today from Dr. Jackson's team, and they showcase a lot of trainings for families. And we thought that it would be good to announce that here, that there's they just released their 2025 training calendar, or I don't know if it's called training, using that loosely. But there's two on there. One is upcoming about executive functioning. And then there was another one, I can't think of it. There was another topic. I'll probably send it to you guys in the email. But again, we just wanted to bring that to you all's attention. You may want to share that within your district so that families can attend as well.
Okay, Ms. Vickery, you had your hand up.
Yes, so at our last meeting, there was discussion going back to what Ms. Doyle was talking about around housing our documents. And we were supposed to be advised from the board offices on whether or not this advisory committee would get an email address as to where those documents could be sent. So that one, we can be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, and two, we can all get the same documents at the same time. But we did not get answers back. Do we have answers today, or is this again going to be tabled for January 21st? That's my first question.
Ms. Blackwell, is it okay?
Smith. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Okay, so we do have an answer. They're working on it. Let me say that. We do have an answer. This, as far as an email address being structured, as far as having access to a Google Drive, that process is all in one. So they are working on it. We will receive it. We haven't gotten it just yet, but they're working on it.
Awesome. So I think that addresses both my question and Ms. Doyle's question. And then my second question, and then I'm done. Specifically, I had asked, because you just indicated to share within our district, I asked for clarification if I'm allowed to reach out to the schools in my district, which are 27 for District 8, or would it be my District 8 representative who is to introduce me to my schools? Although I am a parent of one of my schools in this district. So did we get clarification on that? Because I am ready to find out what my people need. And I can't help them if I don't know.
So I think it's an excellent question. In fact, Ms. Blackwell and I was having a discussion earlier today. And I think it's a question, Ms. Johnson. I don't know how this is handled because I realize that Ms. Bowman is here and she's part of administration, but she represents special education. And the introduction of this group is not just special ed. So is there a more appropriate person on the school side that would handle communication like this to announce that DIAB has revamped and these are the district representatives? Or is this something that we need to work with with our individual board member representatives?
Chair.
Yes.
Mr.
Fitzpatrick. I'll defer that to Mr. Fitzpatrick. Do you want to respond or?
Yes, we can make sure that a general something goes out. We can work with the administration to make sure that a general thing goes out to all the schools to know who the representative is. And I'll just provide some insight for one of the board's other advisory committees, PCAC. PCAC, the representatives have an existing relationship with their PTAs. And I think what a conversation would look like is who is the parent organization or the best point of contact for you all. It doesn't have to go through the board member, but we can make sure that the schools are aware of who the appointment or the selection is for this committee, and we'll ask the administration who's the best point of contact in the school for you all. Does that work?
That does work, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Hold on for a minute, Ms. Patrick. Excuse me. I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I have a question. We have parent engagement in that building, and they usually can put things out in the overall system in our school to be able to go out to the parents so they can know that. Can we use that as an avenue too, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Because I work well with the parent engagement in my building as well.
I would just caution, as some of the schools do not have parent engagement. So I'm not sure who is over District 7, but I can tell you that there is one school in your district that does not have parent engagement. And some of the specialty schools do not have parent engagement.
True, then we have to work through the PTA for that.
Yeah.
That does not have a parent engagement.
Yes, and then not every school has a PTA, PTO, or
I was gonna say that. So maybe working with the principal's office, possibly.
Yes, and so that's how this kind of spiraled, where we were waiting for instruction from the board because we knew that there wasn't specifically a representation that I could, easily be accessible. So the question was, do you want us to go directly to these principals, or how is it that you want us to do this? So my understanding, if I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Fitzpatrick, PTAs, the PEAs, and then what is the next step if the school does not have that representation?
What I'll do is I'll communicate with the administration about who the best point of contact is for that school.
Okay.
And then I have one more question. I am not quite sure how to ask this, but I'm going to have to just ask it this way, and it is what it is. Is the school board for District 8 representative, is that kind of taken care of, wrapped up? I know there was a recount, and then I have not seen anything that I can find, and it just may be that I've missed it, that there has been movement on that.
Here, may I answer?
Ms. Blackwell, he's asking to be recognized.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Go ahead and speak, please.
Yes, the District 8 representative has been sworn in, and District 8 is Zakia Goins McCants.
And
so she has been sworn in and she started.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, Chair and Vice Chair, if I can get her email address, because as I did try to contact her, I could not find her PGCPS email just yet. So if sometime this week or next week I can get that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm done with my questions
Yes.
for tonight.
Ms.
Okay.
Johnson will give that to you. What I will say is that it wasn't created until 4 o'clock on Friday before we got out of break. So it's not uncommon, but we will make sure that Ms. Johnson gets that to you.
Okay. I'd like to recognize Ms. Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of information. Am I correct in understanding that we are permitted to directly engage our district leaders and community in discussions related to subcommittee focus topics?
Ms. Smith, you had your hand. Do you want to answer that question that Ms. Patrick has?
I have my own separate question.
Okay.
Okay. I want to say yes, because the board is active. I would just simply, I think for me, I would like the communication to be announced formally first before we start that engagement. For me, I would hate for you all to start approaching your different schools and they're like, who in the world are you? What is this about? So it would be good if that communication came downward first and then we react from there.
Ms.
No,
Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up, at our previous meeting, I inquired as well as via email with the chair if we could consider adding to a future agenda a discussion on a coordinated strategy for engaging constituents in each district. Just wanted to follow up on that wondering from the previous meeting.
Okay.
So, Ms. Patrick, I had not seen it. I realized you said you sent it to the chair. We did discuss earlier today about our path moving forward for creating agenda items.
Yes, we did discuss that.
So I apologize that we don't have an answer for you just yet, but we're trying to fine tune the process to get agenda items submitted and posted to board docs. So
Got it.
it'll be forthcoming.
Thank you.
Chair Blackwell, I did have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think my question is for Mr. Fitzpatrick. Do we know who our board member liaison is yet? Is there a status on that? That was one item pending from our last meeting, and Miss Adams Stafford had stated at the time we would know by the end of the week, but we haven't been formally told anything. So is there a status?
All of the, it is, and I hope I'm not releasing something prematurely, but it is my understanding that all of that will be finalized by the next board meeting, which is January 16th. All of the committee assignments and committee chairs and liaisons of that nature.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question for Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, it's not a question. To elaborate with Ms. Smith, Madam Vice Chair stated that we need to have more of a formal letter going out to the schools to identify who we are and what the board does. Would that letter come from you, Ms. Johnson?
Chair.
I think Mr. Fitzpatrick, I'm going to defer to him.
Okay, Mr.
Fitzpatrick. Yes, what we're going to do is we're going to work with the administration to figure out what like you all said, the strategy. We're going to see what the best strategy is to get it to principals. Of course, it'll be something that we work in conjunction with the administration with, but we just wanted something that is both read, acknowledged, and so that you all have the easiest path forward. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. So, as what we have discussed, that goes under follow-ups and next
Ms.
steps.
Blackwell. Ms. Blackwell.
Oh, okay, I'm
sorry. And I just wanted to ask Mr. Fitzpatrick or Ms. Johnson really quickly, about how long do you think that would take that they will receive that notification about DIOP being formed, so that we'll have an idea when we can start talking to our constituents.
I will shoot for the next week and a half, but what I'll do is I'll communicate with the chair to let you know that it has gone out.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Brian?
I just want to follow up on that. Once we do have that announcement made, it's my understanding that we are then going to have a discussion about a coordinated outreach strategy, right? Okay.
Yeah, it will be an agenda item for one of our next upcoming meetings, because that's what's being recommended.
Okay, any other discussions? This will fall under where we just discussed follow-ups and next steps. Yes, Ms. Doyle.
Hi, I just wanted to go back to my question of whether we should all have some baseline documents that we have all read, so we all have the same foundation. And if so, I will help with compiling those documents.
Ms.
Yes,
Smith?
I think, Ms. Doyle, what we will owe to you is where those documents will end up being housed. It might be that you're just sending them up to Chair Blackwell and I, and then we are storing them. But yeah, I thought it was an excellent idea. Chair Blackwell, and I guess the rest of the committee, if you guys don't have any concerns with Ms. Doyle leading that charge, that's pretty much the goal here.
And if anybody has things, please do feel free to send them my way.
Okay, do we need to?
Absolutely. So I'm saying for the Google Drive, are you talking, if you're talking about the Google Drive, I guess, are we just sending them to Ms. Doyle for any information we find?
Yeah, if there are any resources that you all believe would be great for this group, please share them with Ms. Doyle. She'll organize them and whatnot, and then coordinate with Chair Blackwell and I until we get our email address and Google Drive and everything in place.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Are there any other discussions? Anyone like to add anything? Okay, we're moving on to next steps of upcoming action items. Do we have any upcoming action items, Ms. Smith?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Anyone else like to discuss anything or have anything else they'd like to discuss?
Seeing that it's 7:58 p.m., I move that we've tackled the agenda. I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any discussions? So I will, do we need to take a vote on this?
You do need to take a vote.
No.
But I will simply say, as a reminder, our next meeting will be on January 21st at 6 p.m. And then,
Please
yes,
mark,
you can take a vote.
please mark your calendars for that. And the minutes will go out prior to the meeting for your review.
So any objections to the meeting adjourning? Say nay. No objections.
Okay. Any follow-up items from January 9th meeting will be posted to board docs. And for this meeting, I'd like to thank everyone again for joining this evening. And if there's no further business at this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 7:59.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Great night. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.